And I honestly just recently discovered this like battle in myself, which I kind of mentioned, of this expectation that was on me, which like I kind of labeled as C-bum. Some people call me C-bum, they don't know who I am. And then there's Christopher.
Yes.
There's like that 12-year-old Christopher who's just like, he's emotional, he's anxious, he's stressed out, but he's quiet, and he's just who he is. And then C-bum is fucking confident, calm, cool, collected, can step on stage, grab a mic, give a motivational speech, crush Olympia, squat 600 pounds, he's like the dream. And then that person doesn't exist. But when people continuously call me C-bum, treat me like that, look up to me like that, that's what builds this like disc myself. And I need to continuously discover who Chris is, who Christopher is, go back who he was, who he is now, and like all these aspects of myself that are just me, and let that continuously shine through. But I think as like you adapted when you were young, I've adapted when we were young, we create this thing that fits better into society rather than just being ourselves, because we want to fit in, we want to succeed, we want to be the ideal that we hear. And there was this, I think it's Brene Brown, she talks about it. She's a vulnerability specialist. I'm sure you know who she is. She said this thing where is if you show up in a crowd and your goal is to fit in, then you're putting your self-worth on the line. But if you show up and your goal is just to be yourself, then you can't fail. And your self-worth is at the end of the day is if you just act like yourself, everybody can do that. And then you leave feeling good about yourself because you have control over that. But if you're showing up and you're just doing and being anything just to be fit into the crowd, and you don't fit in and you're not even being yourself, then who the fuck are you? You're worthless. I feel like a real man is confident and comfortable enough to embrace the feminine energy he has in him. If he's emotional, let it out, but also have that masculine side of it. Be like, I'm going to be emotional right now, but I'm still going to go and fuck shit up right now, I'm still going to take charge of what I want with my life. I'm going to work fucking hard and be disciplined, but I'm going to accept that sometimes I'm going to break down. And it's going to be, I'm not saying that women break down, but there's more emotion over there, and allow it to feel it and to ask for help and to lean on people. And being able to balance those two and that like yin and yang, I think that's what's missing personally. And I do, like, on one level, I do feel a sense of responsibility because the fitness is a big world of men who are, I think, usually get into fitness on some level, maybe feeling lost, and they can feel a little bit safe. And I heard a lot of people be like, I can go in the gym and just forget about everything. I'm like, that's great. The gym's an amazing tool for that. But you still need to go back and feel that shit eventually because it's not going away. A good workout doesn't make the stress at home better now. It's still just buried under that fucking dopamine rush and sick pump you got in your chest, It's still there. So I think just learning to navigate and balance that is super important. And that's where I'm like, okay, I'm someone right now where people look up to. On one level, there's a responsibility for me. Let's take my 12-year-old self who felt like he had to hold it all together. He couldn't lean on anyone. He couldn't ask for help. And I just remember this time I was in the hospital a few years ago, and I didn't tell my parents. I didn't want to tell them because I didn't want them to be stressed and anxious. And then they found out, and I was like, it's okay, like, don't come. I'm totally fine. Like, they were out of town, or we live in different cities, and I'm like, don't even bother coming. I'll be out of here in no time. It's okay. And I thought about that, and I broke down crying again. And I was like, why didn't I ask for help? I felt so scared and alone. And just to have my mom sitting beside me, I'm a man, I'm 20 years old at the time, it would have felt better. But why am I so scared to ask for help?
Why do you think you are scared to ask for help?
Part of my childhood of just feeling like, I saw my dad who didn't really need help. My mom was busy. They were both super busy with work, and they gave me everything that they could, but they came from families who didn't know how to show them kind of love and support. And they came from, so there's all these generations of this pain who don't know how to express themselves. And then I think, honestly, my parents jumped about 10 generations worth of progress of who they are and how they showed me love and vulnerability as much as they could, but there's still stuff missing. And now I would like to jump a few generations as well and hopefully help my kids. But there's always a gap of with a kid where we're going to miss something. And I think a lot of that does come from my childhood. And then so when I get in situations like that, and I was afraid to ask for help. And now I look back and I'm just like, if I had just started crying and been like, I need you, Mom, like I would have felt so much better.
Yep.
But I had to be like, no, I'm okay. Don't even come. I'm good. I'm going to sit in this hospital by myself and stare at the wall and just try not to think about dying, Like, that's fucking insane. I don't know why I did that.
Well, what would you say? Okay, so, there's a lot of guys listening who say that resonates with me. I feel like I struggle to open up. I find it hard to embrace the fears and the insecurities and stuff that I have. What have you found as a good first step, or as the first steps that's good for those guys to take to move forward?
It's definitely tough, and it's depending on the situation in your life. And this is kind of where I was getting at, is like, hopefully myself, if I think of who I would have wanted to be as a role model to that 12-year-old boy, that's who I should be in this world to anyone who is looking up to me now. So I hope that some people like me who express this stuff can at least give permission for people to start that journey. So if I have that impact on anyone, and I've had people come up to me and like at Q&As and shit, they're like, I wanted to ask you this, but like I'm fucking going, like, tell me some crazy story where I'm about to cry listening to them, and they're coming to share it with me, and I'm like, fuck, man, like that's deep. You need some, like, you need people to lean on. And they're like, I don't know what to do. So my advice to those people would be to understand that hopefully you have someone in your life who loves you, and if they love you, they want to help you. They might not know how to ask you because they weren't given that help. So sometimes you have to put yourself out there and be like, and just open yourself up to them and allow them to see deep inside you, because not everyone can read your mind and like dive deep into your skull just because of your, like, you have a different look on your face today or something, you know? So if you have people you love, lean into them. And if you really don't feel safe with anyone in your life, that's scary. And I'm like, I feel horrible for anyone who feels that alone, but find a therapist or something. I did have people I could lean on and loved in my life, but I went to a therapist before even them. And back in 2020, when I told you that thing I can't talk about, that was really hard on me, I buried all that, and then I went to a therapist and started talking to them. And I thought I'd never be able to open up to someone, some stranger, I don't know. First session, fucking crying on this couch. And I was like, holy shit, there's a lot of stuff inside me right now. And so much of my journey for the last 5 years have been understanding how much stuff I've suppressed and didn't know what was there and allow it to come up. And the amount of like, how light heart feels and how light my body feels when I kind of get some of that out, it just helped me so much.
You can tell that you feel more sort of aligned
just
with
like,
it.
Yeah, I just feel good with myself overall. And I know, like I said earlier, I got emotional just thinking about like the people I've had in my life. And now with Courtney, the amount our relationship has built over this span of time of me being able to bring myself out more and share with her, we were engaged, and now I'm like, I don't fucking even know what a ring is, but I'm going to fucking die with this girl by my side because nothing's going to tear us apart. Because we've connection through that trust. You can be this fucking killer who cries, you know, like you can. And I mean, I'm not a deep religious person, but you look at someone like Jesus Christ. The night before he got crucified, the Bible says he was weeping. You know, he was scared. When he was carrying the cross, he was stumbling, he was falling. He had to have people help him. Like, this is the epitome of the archetypal, like, human. You know, and he struggled, he cried, he was scared, and he was sacrificed for everyone. Like, that's a story that's old as time that was equally showing that. But you don't think Jesus was a fucking badass motherfucker? Like, I think he probably was, you know? So I think there's a to intertwine that. And sometimes people come out of the woodworks like Andrew Tate, who are just so far one way, like, this is being a man. And then there's people who are too far the other way, who are like, you need to be sensitive and cry, and who cares about winning and all this shit. And it's like, no, like, I want to be the best version of myself, and that's my biggest goal. But underneath that, I want to fucking win. I want to fucking embarrass everybody on stage. But when I don't, I'm not any less of a man. Yep. I'm still just as, like, I still value myself. I'm just as worthy of a human being. But that's just, I still want to fucking fuck shit up over there, you know? Yeah. So being able to intertwine that and just believe that they can coexist, I think is something just super important to set off on that journey.
I saw you post about the difference between seeing a dream as a fantasy and seeing it as an objective. Mm-hmm. That you guys had been playing around with words and definitions and how important they were. Yeah. What is that difference? What's the difference between seeing a dream as a fantasy and a dream as an objective?
I was kind of just reflecting on, I think a lot about language too, and I try and correct the way I say things, and like, people call me out for it now on my YouTube, and it helps me a lot. And I just think there's a lot of power in words that reflects a lot, but it's not so much the word, but it's each individual's perception of that word. And it was just more of a thought, because I said this thing like dream with intent, and it was just like, what is a dream even like? Anyone could ask you a question, and you're like, well, what's your definition of this word in that question? And it could be completely different. So if I say dream, somebody could be like, well, I'm fantasizing about this. But in their mind, they're like someone who works 9 to 5, and they're fantasizing of their dream job that they know they're never going to do because it's just a dream. And then there's the type of person who hears dream, and it's like, well, it's synonymous with goal. It's just an objective I'm going to get. It's just my top line objective. And I think even just like starting something and being like, this is my dream, if that means that to you, great, but maybe you should switch that word to this is my goal. This is my objective. This is what I'm chasing after. So you're actually committing a plan of action to yourself rather than just some like fantasy that you have in your sleep.
One of the best things I heard about this was a lot of people are worried about giving up what they have now for what is going to happen in future, especially it comes to do with work. Right? Mm-hmm. That you have a job which is okay, it's not great, but it's not that bad. And you end up realizing, are you succeeding at a job that you hate? Yes. Imagine how well you would succeed at a job that you loved.
Yeah.
And it's crazy. I think 85% of Americans say that they are either actively unengaged or not engaged with their work. It's only 15% of people that say I am actively engaged with my work.
Yeah.
So you have 85% of people that are basically ambivalent or like outright negative about the thing that they spend 40 hours a week doing.
Yeah.
And not everybody can just up sticks and decide to pivot and go and do different stuff. But that's the point, that everybody faces that same level of difficulty. And that when it becomes tough or you're uncertain or whatever, everybody else faces that as well.
Yeah.
So it's almost like when you're deep in a diet and your body is pushing you to try and eat more food, but you're stopping it from eating more food. Yeah, that's not an enjoyable feeling, but it is the sign that progress is being made. And it's the same thing as when a lot of guys message me and ask about, I don't necessarily have the support system around me that I wish that I did to be able to do the things that I want to. I live in the northwest of England and, you know, I love reading philosophy or psychology and learning about human nature, but all of my friends are like rugby players and all they want to do is go out and drink every weekend. And I used to be like that and maybe now I'm not. And I'm starting to feel discontinuity and discord and friction between me and the life that I used to live and the life that I live now and where I want to go. How can I deal with the fact that this is painful for me? And the answer is the fact that it is painful is the reason that it's working. That if it wasn't you stepping out, everybody else that has to try and step out into this new life faces this same thing too. Every single person does. That's why most people don't do it. Like this is what hard feels like. And this is why most people don't win. So continuing to push through and almost seeing that level of discomfort as a signal, it's like a way marker that's been planted in the ground. Yes, more this way. Because if it was all just super easy, well, how are you going to get anything different to what everybody else has got if you do the same thing that everybody else does? And one of the best selectors for people not doing a thing is discomfort. So the route that has a lot of discomfort down it, usually on the other side of that, ends up with something which is valuable.
Usually.
If
you know where your progress is going.
Correct.
Like to build on that, when you were talking about like the progress part, so it kills a lot of people is like, what are you progressing towards? People who sit in their jobs and they feel like there's no value, it's not contributing to themselves or the world, or really it's just there for a paycheck. And it feels like tough, like uncomfortable, though there's just, you're just with it. But at least your friend, if he's chasing after something that's like a dream of his or a passion that he's chasing towards and his progress is uncomfortable, at least at the end of that line, it's what he wants. And that's leads to obvious, like a lot of people ask me, how do you stay so, like you mentioned discipline when you're at the point you want to eat and you're on a diet? I'd be like, well, I love what I do. At the baseline, I'm passionate about what I'm doing and I love what the will be. I love the part of it. I love the impact it has on others, help people in my life and myself. So at the end, that's just, there's a reason, there's a purpose behind it, rather than just mindlessly circling the wheel.
When are you going to stop? When are you going to be done?
When am I going to stop?
Be done.
It's $1 million question right now. The last few years I've been getting asked that a lot. I think because I went through a tough period at one point where I wasn't thriving in bodybuilding and I wasn't enjoying it too much. And I think I almost like hinted in my energy that this wasn't like going to be forever. And people are like, he's going to retire. So now I get that question all the time. But since integrating myself more into this, like I was speaking about, the C-Bum vs. Christopher, being myself more, allowing myself to feel the stress sometimes makes me more excited about the good parts and feel all the joy rather than just numbing stuff out. It's actually made it a lot more fun. Overall, I'm a lot more excited every year now and I look forward to it. So every year now I'm like excited to keep going, to be better. And I've always told myself, again, I tell myself these things, if I come to the point where I'm not excited, where I'm not like looking forward to like pushing myself and going past those limits again, and I'm like, oh, like fuck, like, and I have those days, but I mean consistent, like that's how I truly feel about it, then I need to pull out. Because I don't think without that like love and drive and passion that I'm going to be able to push my body to the limits of where I'm actually capable of being my best self. And I don't want to compete to win another title. I don't want to look worse and win a title. I want to know that I'm progressing and I'm like beating what I looked like last year, which how fucking miserable it was to get down to that body and to keep that muscle on me and to train like that and do all that. I want to know I can beat that this year. That's part of what excites me even more than the trophy does. So as soon as I lose that fire, I got to tell myself I'm tapping out and I'm ready for the next part of life. But I'm truly taking it year by year.